The stars had always belonged to the Empire. For 10,000 years, they had conquered world after world. They had crushed civilizations older than their own sun. They had made gods kneel and kings beg. No species had ever stood against them and survived. Emperor sat on his throne made of bones from 100 dead worlds. His purple skin glowed under the dim lights of his palace. His 4 eyes scanned the holographic map floating before him. The galaxy spread out like a jewel, and most of it was painted in the deep red of control. But there was one small section of space that remained gray, unmarked, unknown. "What is this?" asked, pointing one of his long fingers at the gray zone. His advisor, a thin creature named, stepped forward. His voice was soft and careful. "That is Sector 7, my Emperor, the Terran territory." Terran had never heard the word before. What are Terrans? "They are called humans, my lord, a young species. They have only been in space for about 500 of their years. They control a small number of systems in that region." Laughed, the sound echoed through the hall like thunder. 500 years. We have ruled for 10,000. Why have we not taken their worlds?" Looked uncomfortable. He shifted his weight from one leg to the other. "There is a warning, my Emperor." "A warning?" Touched a panel on his wrist. A new image appeared in the air. It was an old transmission, recorded long ago. The language was strange, but the translation appeared below the words. A human face filled the screen. It was a female with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a military uniform with a patch that showed a blue planet. "This message is for any species thinking of entering Terran space without permission," the woman said. Her voice was flat and cold. "We have tried peace. We have offered friendship. Every time you have answered with weapons. So now we give you this simple truth. Enter our territory and you will not return. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We have buried our weapons deep in the dark between stars. They wait for you. They are patient. They are hungry. You have been warned." The transmission ended. Stared at the empty space where the image had been. Then he laughed again. "This is the warning. A female reading words from a screen. This is what has kept the mighty away for so long." "The transmission is over 300 years old, my Emperor," said quietly. "Every ship we have sent into that sector has disappeared. Scouts, traders, even a small military group. None came back. We received no distress calls, no final messages. They simply vanish." "Then your ships were weak," said. He stood up from his throne. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, and his shadow fell over like a dark blanket. "I will not be afraid of primitives who hide behind old recordings. Prepare the Third Fleet. We will take their worlds and add them to our empire." Opened his mouth to speak, but he saw the look in his eyes. He closed his mouth and bowed low. "As you command, my Emperor." Far across the galaxy, in a small room on a station orbiting Earth's moon, Admiral sat in front of a wall of screens. She was 52 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Behind her, younger officers moved quietly, checking data and monitoring sensors. "Admiral," a voice called out, "we have movement." Turned to look at Captain. He was young, barely 30, but he had proven himself smart and calm under pressure. He pointed at his screen. "A large fleet is forming near the border, over 200 ships. They are moving towards Sector 7. Felt a cold feeling in her stomach. She had known this day would come. They had stayed away for a long time, but empires always grew hungry. They always wanted more. "Show me," she said. Brought the image up on the main screen. The ships were huge, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small planet. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of metal insects. "They are fast," said. "At their current speed, they will reach the border in 6 days." Nodded slowly. She touched a button on her console. "All stations, this is Admiral. We are going to condition yellow. I repeat, condition yellow. This is not a drill." Around the solar system, lights began to blink. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, ancient machines started to wake up. In the asteroid belt, weapon platforms that had been sleeping for centuries opened their eyes. On 100 hidden bases, men and women in uniform stopped what they were doing and moved to their posts. Captain watched his screens with wide eyes. "Admiral, should we contact the... Perhaps we can negotiate. Perhaps." "No," said, her voice was hard. "We tried that once. My grandmother tried that. She offered them peace, trade, friendship. Do you know what they did?" Shook his head. "They burned the colony on 442B. 40,000 people. Men, women, children, all dead. They did not even want the planet. They just wanted to show us our place." Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the earth hanging in the black sky, blue and green and beautiful. That was the day we stopped hopping for peace. That was the day we started building weapons that would make sure no one ever hurt us again. "But 200 ships," Admiral said. "How can we?" "You will see," said softly. "They think they are coming to conquer weak primitives. They think this will be easy. They are wrong." She turned back to face her crew. Her eyes were bright and fierce. "Send the final warning. One last chance. Let the record show that we gave them every opportunity to turn back." His fingers moved across his console. A message shot across the stars, traveling faster than light, reaching the fleet in moments. On the bridge of the flagship, Emperor received the transmission. Another human face appeared. This time, it was an old woman with kind eyes and a sad smile. "People of the Empire," she said, "we know you are coming. We ask you one last time, turn back. We do not want war, we do not want death, but if you cross into our territory, we will defend ourselves. Please understand, we have been preparing for this moment for 300 years. Every star in our space hides a weapon. Every moon holds a trap. Every planet is a fortress. Turn back now and there will be no war. Continue forward and we will show you why the humans have survived." Deleted the message without watching it to the end. "Primitive fools," he said. "Continue forward, all ships maximum speed." Back on the moon station, Admiral watched the fleet accelerate toward the border. She let out a long breath. "They did not listen," said. "They never do," replied. She pressed another button. "All defensive systems go to condition red. Wake up the sleepers. Open the vaults. And may the universe forgive us for what we are about to do." In the cold dark between stars, ancient machines began to move. Weapons that had slept for centuries powered up their systems, and somewhere in the void, a countdown started. The Empire had been warned. They had chosen not to listen. Now they would learn why that was a mistake. The Third Fleet crossed the border at exactly midnight Earth time. 212 warships moved through the darkness of space like a river of steel and fire. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, built over centuries of conquest. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop nuclear explosions. In 10,000 years of war, nothing had ever broken a battle line. Emperor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the endless night. He watched the stars slide past the window. Somewhere ahead, the human worlds waited, weak, soft, ready to fall. "We have crossed into Terran territory," my Emperor reported. "No response from the humans. Perhaps they are too afraid to fight." Smiled, his sharp teeth gleamed in the low light. "Of course they are afraid. They are insects looking at a boot. Begin scanning for their first colony world. I want to land troops before sunrise." But before could respond, something strange happened. The stars disappeared. One by one, the points of light around them went dark. It was like watching candles being blown out by an invisible wind. The crew members looked at each other with confusion. "What is happening?" demanded. "Why are the stars going out?" A young officer checked his instruments. His hands were shaking. "My Emperor, the stars are not going out. Something is blocking them, something huge." Suddenly, the darkness moved. What had thought was empty space began to shift and twist. Massive shapes appeared out of the black, and he realized with horror that they were not looking at darkness at all. They were looking at objects so large and so black that they had hidden against the background of space. Weapons platforms. Hundreds of them. Each one was the size of a small moon. They floated in silence, arranged in a perfect sphere around the fleet. They had been there the whole time, waiting, watching. Impossible, whispered. How did they hide these from our sensors? No one had an answer. Then the platforms opened fire. The first wave of projectiles moved so fast that they were invisible to the naked eye. Rail guns, simple weapons by standards, but built on a scale that imagination. Each shot was a metal rod the size of a building, accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light. The lead ship, the Crimson Dawn, took the first hit. The projectile punched through its shields like they were made of paper. It went through the hull, through the engine room, and out the other side. The ship did not explode. It simply fell apart, coming undone in a silent spray of metal and fire. 14 more ships died in the first 3 seconds. Return fire, screamed. All ships return fire. The weapons answered. Plasma beams and antimatter missiles streaked toward the nearest platform. The shots hit their target, but when the light faded, the platform was still there. Its surface was scratched, nothing more. Their armor, said, his voice breaking. My Emperor, our weapons cannot. Another wave of railgun fire ripped through the fleet. 20 more ships vanished in flashes of light and debris. The perfect formation began to break apart as captains tried to evade the deadly projectiles. And then the smaller weapons activated. From the surface of each platform, thousands of tiny lights began to glow. They looked like stars being born. Then they launched swarms of small drones, each one the size of a human hand, each one carrying a single purpose: to kill. The drones moved like liquid flowing around defenses. They found the gaps in shields, the weak points in armor. They crawled into engine vents and weapon ports, and then they exploded. From her station on the lunar base, Admiral watched the battle unfold on her screens. Beside her, Captain tracked the destruction with wide eyes. 40 ships destroyed, reported. 50, 60, they cannot break through our defensive line. Nodded, but her face showed no joy. This is not a victory, Captain. This is a slaughter. There is no honor in killing those who cannot fight back. They chose this, Admiral. They were warned. I know, his voice was tired, but that does not make it easier to watch. On the battlefield was screaming orders that no one could follow. His flagship shook as drones tore at its hull. All around him, his mighty fleet was dying. Fall back, he finally commanded. All ships retreat, get us out of here. But retreat was not possible. At that moment, a new group of ships appeared behind the fleet. These were human ships, small, fast, and deadly. They had been waiting in the shadow of an asteroid, engines cold, invisible to sensors. Commander led the Ghost Squadron. He was 40 years old, a veteran of 3 border conflicts. His ship, the Silent Knife, was built for one purpose: to strike without warning and vanish before the enemy could respond. All fighters, said calmly into his radio, pick your targets. Go for the engines. Disable their ability to retreat. We finish this here. 12 human ships shot forward like arrows. They moved through the chaos of the battle with perfect precision, dodging debris and drone swarms. His targeting system locked onto the nearest cruiser. He pressed the firing button. A pulse of energy hit the cruiser's main engine. The massive ship shuddered and began to drift, powerless. Around it, other ships suffered the same fate. Human fighters danced around them, cutting their ability to run. Watched in horror as his empire's greatest fleet was taken apart like a toy. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were primitives. Humans were weak. How could this be happening? Emperor shouted, "We must escape. The flagship's shields are failing." Looked at his advisor. For the first time in his long life he felt fear, real fear, the kind of fear that makes it hard to breathe. How, he whispered, how did they do this? No one could answer him. The battle lasted 12 minutes. In those 12 minutes, the lost 173 ships. The remaining 39 vessels were too damaged to move. They floated in the wreckage of their fallen brothers, waiting for the end. Commander brought his ship to a stop in front of the endless night. He looked at the massive alien vessel and broken. "Ghost Squadron to base," he reported. "The enemy fleet is neutralized, awaiting orders." Admiral's voice came through the radio. "Well done, Commander. Stand by." On the lunar base, turned to face her crew. "Send a message to the flagship. Ask them if they are ready to surrender." Hesitated. "Admiral, they may not." "Ask them anyway," said. "We are soldiers, not butchers. We give them a choice." The message was sent. On the bridge of the endless night, received it. His hands trembled as he read the words. "Surrender is offered. No more of your people need to die today. Accept, and you will be treated with honor. Refuse, and we will finish what we started." Looked around at the ruins of his bridge. He looked at the bodies of his crew, killed by drones or falling debris. He looked at who was bleeding from a wound on his head. Then he looked out the window at the human ships, waiting patiently in the darkness. He had been so certain of victory. He had been so confident in his power. And now, in just 12 minutes, everything had changed. But was still an emperor. He still had his pride. "Send no response," he said quietly. "Let them wonder what we will do." Stared at him. "My emperor, if we do not surrender, they will destroy us." "Perhaps," said, "but I will not beg, not to primitives, not to anyone." He sat down in his damaged throne and waited for whatever came next. In her command center, Admiral received the silence. She understood what it meant. "They refuse to answer," she said softly. "They choose pride over survival." "What do we do?" asked. Closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were hard and cold. "We wait," she said. "Let them sit in the wreckage of their arrogance. Let them think about what they have done, and when they are ready to talk, we will be listening." She turned away from the screens. "This was only the first battle," she said to no one in particular. "The Emperor will send more ships. He must to save his honor, and when he does—" She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The weapons of Terra were awake now, and they were hungry for more. The news of the Third Fleet's destruction spread through the Empire like fire through dry grass. No one could believe it. The mighty Third Fleet, pride of the Imperial Navy, reduced to floating wreckage by primitives. Impossible. There had to be a mistake. But there was no mistake. Emperor had returned home with only 39 damaged ships out of 212. He sat in his throne room alone, staring at the wall. His 4 eyes were empty. His mind kept replaying those 12 terrible minutes over and over again. The door opened. Entered, his head still wrapped in bandages from his wound. "My Emperor," he said carefully, "the High Council demands an audience." "Let them wait." "They have been waiting for 3 days, my lord. They are concerned." Laughed bitterly. "Concerned, they are afraid, they smell weakness. They wonder if perhaps it is time for a new emperor." Said nothing. They both knew it was true. After a long silence, stood up. His body felt heavy, older than it had a week ago. "Very well, let them in. Let them see their emperor and ask their questions." The High Council filed into the throne room. There were 12 of them, the most powerful lords and generals in the empire. They looked at with eyes full of doubt and suspicion. General spoke first. He was old from 100 battles. "My Emperor, we require an explanation. How did mere humans destroy our finest fleet?" "They had weapons we did not expect," said flatly. "Hidden platforms, drone swarms, fast attack ships. They were prepared for us." "Prepared?" Another council member stepped forward. "They knew we were coming." "They have been waiting for centuries," admitted. "They built their defenses during generations of peace. While we grew comfortable, they grew strong." The council members exchanged looks. This was worse than they had feared. "What do you propose?" asked. His eyes hardened. Some of the old fire returned to his voice. "I propose we stop underestimating them. I propose we send the Grand Armada, every ship we can spare, every weapon we can carry. We will not make the same mistake twice." "The Grand Armada has not been assembled in 5,000 years, said quietly. "Then it is time," replied. "Send the call to every corner of the Empire, every colony, every outpost, every hidden base. I want 1,000 ships at the border within 30 days. We will crush these humans with numbers they cannot imagine." The council voted. Despite their doubts, they agreed. The honor of the Empire demanded revenge. Word reached Earth within hours. Terran intelligence had spies everywhere, small drones no bigger than insects, hidden in the walls of ships, listening to every conversation. Admiral called an emergency meeting. Her commanders gathered around the holographic table, their faces grim. 1,000 ships, said, letting the number hang in the air. Our defensive platforms performed well, but they were designed to stop a few hundred enemies at most. 1,000 is beyond their capability. Captain studied the data on his tablet. They will arrive in approximately 40 days, Admiral. They are gathering from across their empire. Can we build more platforms in that time? Asked Commander. No, said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at Lieutenant Sara. She was young, only 26, but she had the sharpest mind in Terran weapons development. Beside her stood Engineer, a quiet man with oil stains on his uniform and tired eyes. We cannot build more platforms in 40 days, Sara continued. But we do not need to, we have something else. She nodded too. He touched a button, and a new image appeared above the table. It looked like nothing special. A small metal sphere, no bigger than a human fist. Its surface was covered in tiny dots. What is that? Asked. We call it the Swarm, Sara said. It was developed in secret 50 years ago. Too dangerous to ever use, they said. Too unpredictable, too effective. She picked up her tablet and began explaining. Each sphere contains 1 million microscopic machines. Each machine is smaller than a grain of sand. When deployed, they seek out enemy technology and begin to consume it. Consume frowned. They eat metal, spoke up, his voice quiet but clear. They break it down at the atomic level and use the material to build copies of themselves. One sphere can produce 1 billion new machines within 6 hours. Within 12 hours, 1 trillion. Within 24 hours. He did not need to finish. The swarm is self-replicating, Sara said. Once released, it will spread through an enemy fleet like a disease. It cannot be stopped. It cannot be reasoned with. It simply eats. The room fell silent. Finally spoke. You said it was too dangerous. What happens after it destroys the enemy? How do we stop it? Sara hesitated. Each machine has a built-in timer. After 72 hours, they shut down and become inert, dead. But during those 72 hours, anything made of metal in the target area will be destroyed, finished. Ships, stations, weapons, satellites, everything. And what about people? Asked quietly. The machines are programmed to avoid organic matter, Sara said. They target technology only, but without their ships. She did not need to explain what would happen to crew members floating in the vacuum of space. Looked at the tiny sphere floating in the hologram. Such a small thing, such terrible power. Has it ever been tested? She asked. Once, Sara admitted. In a distant asteroid field, far from any inhabited systems, we released a single sphere and observed. Within 48 hours, every piece of metal within 10,000 kilometers was gone. The machines performed exactly as designed. And then they shut down. Yes, Admiral, exactly at the 72-hour mark. We collected samples afterward. They were completely dead, harmless. Turned to look at her commanders. Their faces showed a mixture of horror and hope. "If we use this weapon," she said slowly, "there will be no battle, no fighting. The fleet will simply cease to exist. Is that what we want? Is that who we are?" Commander spoke up. "Admiral, with respect, they are bringing 1,000 warships to our border. They intend to kill every man, woman, and child in Terran space. We have a responsibility to protect our people by any means necessary." "And what happens after?" asked. "If we use such a weapon, what will the galaxy think of us? Will they see us as defenders or as monsters?" "They already think we are monsters," replied. "Every civilization fears what they do not understand. Let them fear us. Let them fear us so much that no one ever dares to attack us again." The debate continued for hours. In the end, made the decision alone. That was the burden of command. "Prepare the swarm," she said finally. "We will hold it in reserve. If the conventional defenses fail, if we have no other choice, then we will use it. But only then, only as a last resort." Sora nodded. "I will have the delivery systems ready within 30 days, Admiral." "Good," stood up. "And Lieutenant, make sure the timer is set correctly. 72 hours, not a second longer." "Yes, Admiral." The meeting ended. The commanders returned to their posts, and deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a vault that had been sealed for 50 years, rows of silver spheres began to glow with faint inner light. The swarm was waking up. 40 days later, the Grand Armada arrived at the border of Terran space. 1,047 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the Empire. They filled the sky like a wall of steel. Emperor stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Eternal Glory. Around him, his officers cheered and shouted battle cries. "Let the humans see what true power looks like," declared. "All ships advance. Today we take back our honor." The Armada surged forward, crossing into Terran territory with weapons ready and shields raised. Admiral watched them come. Her defensive platforms opened fire, destroying ships by the dozen. Commander's Ghost Squadron launched attack after attack, but they had learned. Their new formation spread out, making them harder to hit. Their shields were stronger, their weapons more accurate. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Terran defenses held, but barely. More and more ships pushed through the defensive line. Finally made the call. "Deploy the swarm," she said quietly. Somewhere in the chaos of battle, a small ship, no bigger than a shuttle, slipped through the formation. It carried 12 silver spheres in its cargo hold. Lieutenant Sora piloted it herself. When she reached the center of the Armada, she opened the cargo doors. 12 spheres drifted out into space. And then they opened. They never knew what hit them. One moment they were winning. The next moment their ships began to fall apart. Hulls dissolved like sugar in water. Weapons crumbled to dust. Engines stopped working. Screams filled the communication channels as crews watched their vessels disintegrate around them. Stood frozen on his bridge as warning lights flashed everywhere. His ship was dying. He could feel it coming apart beneath his feet. "What is happening?" he screamed. "What are they doing to us?" No one could answer. No one understood. The swarm was hungry, and it had just begun to eat. The swarm finished its work in 18 hours. When the tiny machines finally went quiet, there was nothing left of the Grand Armada. No ships, no weapons, no stations, just clouds of metallic dust floating in the empty darkness of space. 1,047 warships, gone. The survivors, those lucky enough to be wearing emergency suits when their ships dissolved, drifted in the void, waiting for rescue or death. Terran ships moved among them, collecting the living and leaving the dead. It was not mercy. It was something stranger than mercy. It was a message. Emperor was found floating near where his flagship used to be. His emergency suit was failing when they pulled him aboard the Terran rescue vessel. He expected to be killed immediately. Instead, they gave him water and medical attention. This confused him more than anything else. The news of the Armada's destruction reached the home world within days. This time there was no debate in the High Council. There was only silence, then screaming, then finally crying. 10,000 years of victories, erased in 18 hours. General was the first to speak after the long silence. His voice was hollow, broken. We must negotiate. We must offer peace before they come for us. Peace? Another council member laughed, a mad sound. Do you think they will accept peace? After what we tried to do, after we sent our entire military to destroy them? Then what do you suggest? Demanded. No one had an answer. In Terran space, Admiral did not celebrate. She sat alone in her quarters, looking at the casualty reports. 217 Terran soldiers had died in the battle. Each name was a weight on her heart. Captain knocked on her door. Admiral, the Council wishes to speak with you. The Terran Council was different from the High Council. It was made up of elected representatives from every human colony, 47 worlds in total. They met via hologram, their faces flickering on screens around command center. Admiral, the Council President said. He was a thin man with white hair named Director. The galaxy is watching us. Every species with a telescope saw what our weapons did to the fleet. Some are afraid. Some are impressed. All of them are waiting to see what we do next. What are our options? Asked. We could stop here, said. Declare victory and return to our borders. They have learned their lesson. They will not attack again. With respect, Director, I disagree, said another council member, a woman named General. She was 60 years old, the highest-ranking officer in the Terran military. They have ruled through fear for 10,000 years. If we stop now, they will rebuild. They will remember this defeat and they will want revenge. Maybe not in 10 years, maybe not in 100, but eventually they will come back. And next time they will be prepared for our weapons. The council members murmured among themselves. What do you suggest, General? Asked. His eyes were cold. We cannot let them rebuild. We must push forward, enter their space, destroy their military infrastructure, leave them unable to threaten anyone ever again. That would make us conquerors, said quietly, no better than them. No, replied, it would make us survivors. There is a difference. The council voted. The decision was close, but in the end, they chose survival over caution. Admiral received her orders. She read them twice, then called her commanders together. We are going on the offensive, she announced. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fleets will cross into space within 48 hours. Our objective is to destroy all military installations, all weapon factories, all shipyards. We will leave their civilian infrastructure intact. We are not here to kill innocents. We are here to make sure they can never threaten us again. Commander nodded slowly, and the Emperor. We capture him if we can, kill him if we must. His power must end. The Terran offensive began 2 days later. 150 ships crossed the border into territory. They moved fast, hitting targets before the enemy could respond. General personally led the attack on the shipyards at Prime. Her flagship, the Iron Will, cut through the orbital defenses like a knife through silk. Terran fighters swarmed the massive construction platforms, planting charges and withdrawing before the explosions began. From the surface of Prime, millions watched in horror as their shipyards burned. The flames were visible even in daylight, bright orange stars falling from the sky. Broadcast a message to the planet below. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. People of Prime, she said, we are not here to harm you. We are here to take away the tools your leaders used to hurt others. Stay in your homes, keep your families safe. When we are finished, we will leave and you can rebuild a better future. But know this, the days of conquest are over. The galaxy will no longer live in fear of your fleets. This is not cruelty. This is justice. Some cursed her name. Others secretly felt something like relief. The Empire had demanded so much from them, soldiers, resources, lives. Perhaps they whispered to each other, perhaps it was time for a change. The campaign continued for 3 weeks. Terran forces destroyed 17 shipyards, 43 military bases, and over 200 weapon platforms. They captured or destroyed 90% of the remaining fleet. Emperor, who had been released after the first battle as a gesture of strange mercy, watched from his palace as his empire crumbled. He had no ships left to fight with, no weapons left to fire. His generals came to him with reports of defeat after defeat, and he could do nothing but listen. Finally, approached him one last time. "My emperor," he said softly, "there is nothing left. We have no military. Our allies have abandoned us. The other species of the galaxy are watching us fall, and none of them will help. If we do not negotiate now, the humans will come to this world. They will come to your throne room." Stared at his advisor. His 4 eyes were dull, empty. The proud emperor who had laughed at warnings was gone. In his place was an old man who had lost everything. "What do they want?" he asked. "We do not know, my lord. They have not stated their demands, but they have offered to talk. General has invited you to a meeting on neutral ground." Laughed bitterly. "Neutral ground? There is no neutral ground. They have one. Everything belongs to them now." "Then perhaps," said carefully, "it is best to hear what they have to say." The meeting took place on a small moon in the empty space between empires. General arrived first, accompanied by Admiral and Captain. They wore their dress uniforms, clean and pressed, a contrast to the dirty uniforms they had worn during the fighting. Arrived with and 2 guards, all that remained of his once mighty entourage. He looked smaller than before, older, his purple skin faded to a grayish color. They sat across from each other at a simple metal table. No decorations, no ceremony, just 2 groups of people deciding the fate of civilizations. General spoke first. Her voice was firm but not hostile. "Emperor," she said, "you were warned, your people were warned. 300 years ago we sent a message to every empire in this region of space. Do not enter Terran territory. We asked for nothing but to be left alone. You chose to ignore us. You chose to attack. And now here we are." Said nothing. What could he say? "We could destroy your entire species," continued. "We have the weapons. We have the will. After what you tried to do to our people, no one would blame us." She paused. "But that is not who we are. Humans remember what it was like to be weak. We remember what it was like to fear stronger enemies. We will not become the thing we fought against." She slid a document across the table. "These are our terms. Read them, accept them, and this war ends today." Looked at the document. His hands trembled as he picked it up. His eyes moved across the words, and as he read, his expression changed from fear to confusion to something like disbelief. The terms were harsh, but they were not cruel. They must disband their military forever. They must pay compensation to the species they had conquered over the centuries. They must release all slaves, all prisoners, all subjugated peoples. And they must publicly admit to their crimes against the galaxy. But their worlds would not be taken. Their people would not be killed. Their culture would not be erased. "You are letting us live?" asked, genuinely surprised. "We are giving you a chance to become something better," answered. "What you do with that chance is up to you." Looked at the document for a long time. Then slowly he reached for the pen. "I accept," he said quietly. The war was over. But across the galaxy, a new truth was spreading, a truth that would change everything. The humans were not conquerors. They were not destroyers. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. And they would do whatever it took to protect what was theirs. 1 year had passed since the end of the war. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. For 10,000 years, the Empire had been the most powerful force in known space. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had crushed countless civilizations. Everyone had believed they were unstoppable. And then the humans had stopped them. Not with tricks or luck or accidents, with planning, with patience, with weapons hidden in the dark for 3 centuries. They had walked into a trap that had been waiting for them before most of their soldiers were even born. The other species watched and learned. Captain stood on the bridge of the Peacekeeper, a new Terran battleship built to patrol the borders of human space. Through the window, he could see a small fleet of alien merchant vessels waiting at the edge of Terran territory. They were requesting permission to pass through. "Captain," his communications officer said, "the trade convoy is asking when they can proceed." Check the database. They were a peaceful species, traders and artists, not warriors. They had never threatened anyone. "Grant them passage," said. "Escort them to the Meridian Station and provide any assistance they need." The convoy entered Terran space, guided by 2 small patrol ships. As they passed, the captain sent a message of thanks. His voice was filled with a respect that bordered on fear. Did not like the fear, but he understood it. In the year since the war, everything had changed. Species that had once ignored humanity now sent ambassadors begging for trade agreements. Species that had once threatened humanity now kept their fleets far from Terran borders. The warning that had been laughed at for 3 centuries was now treated like sacred law. "Enter Terran territory, and you will not return." No one laughed anymore. On Earth, the changes were visible everywhere. New monuments stood in every city, honoring those who had died defending humanity. Schools taught children about the war, about the importance of being prepared, about the price of peace. And in the halls of power, leaders debated what kind of future they wanted to build. Admiral had retired from active duty. She spent her days in a small house by the sea, watching the waves and trying to forget the things she had seen. Sometimes, late at night, she still heard the screams from the communication channels as the swarm consumed the fleet. She had done what needed to be done. She knew that, but the weight of those deaths would never fully leave her. One evening, a shuttle landed near her house. Captain stepped out, now wearing the insignia of a commander. He walked down to the beach where sat watching the sunset. "Admiral," he said, using her old title out of respect. "Just now," she replied. "What brings you here?" He sat down beside her in the sand. "The council asked me to deliver their invitation personally. There is going to be a ceremony next month, the anniversary of the war's end. They want you to speak." Shook her head slowly. "I am not good at speeches." "You are good at telling the truth. That is what they need to hear." She was quiet for a long time, watching the orange light fade from the sky. "Do you remember what I told you the night before the first battle?" she asked. Nodded. "You said that winning was not the same as being right, that we had to be careful not to become monsters while fighting monsters." "Yes," picked up a handful of sand and let it fall through her fingers. "I have been thinking about that a lot, about what we did, about what we became." "We defended ourselves," said firmly. "We had no choice." "There is always a choice. We chose to build weapons that could eat fleets. We chose to use them. We could have found another way." "What other way? They brought 1,000 ships to destroy us." Smiled sadly. I know there was no other way. That is what makes it so hard. We did the right thing, and I still feel like I did something terrible." Did not know what to say. He was young. He had not yet learned that doing the right thing could feel wrong. They sat together in silence until the stars came out. Far across the galaxy, Emperor sat in a small room that had once been a servant's quarters in his own palace. The palace now served as a museum, teaching visitors about the crimes of the old empire. Was allowed to live there as part of his punishment, forced to watch strangers walk through his halls, pointing at his throne, whispering about his failures. Came to visit him sometimes. The former advisor had become something like a reformer, working to help to build a new society without war or conquest. "The reconstruction is going well," reported during one visit. The former slave species have accepted our apology. Some of them have even offered to help us rebuild." "Why would they help us?" asked bitterly. "We destroyed their worlds, we killed their people." "Because they want peace," said simply. "Real peace, not the silence of fear. They believe we can change. They want to give us the chance to prove it." Stared out the window at the crowds walking through his gardens. Children were playing on the steps of what used to be his private temple. They were laughing. "The humans did this," he said quietly. "They defeated us, but they did not destroy us. They could have wiped us out. They had every reason to, but they let us live. Why?" Thought about the question for a long time. "I asked General the same thing during the negotiations," he finally said. "Do you know what she told me?" Shook his head. "She said that humans have a long history of hurting each other. Wars, genocides, terrible things, but somewhere along the way they learned that revenge only creates more pain. They learned that enemies can become friends if given the chance. They chose to break the cycle." Paused. "She said that destroying us would have been easy. Forgiving us was the hard part, and humans like to do hard things." Considered this. It was a strange way of thinking. A weak way of thinking, he would have said a year ago. But now, sitting in his small room, watching children laugh in his gardens, he was not so sure. Maybe strength was not just about destroying your enemies. Maybe real strength was choosing not to. The anniversary ceremony was held on Luna, in a great hall built specifically for the occasion. Representatives from 47 human worlds attended, along with ambassadors from dozens of alien species. The hall was filled with people of every shape and color, united by a shared moment in history. Admiral stood at the podium, wearing her old uniform one last time. The medals on her chest caught the light. Her gray hair was pulled back, and her eyes were clear and steady. She looked out at the crowd and began to speak. "1 year ago," she said, "we fought a war we never wanted. We used weapons we hoped we would never need. We killed people who might have become friends in another universe. This was not a victory. This was a tragedy that we survived." The room was completely silent. "For 300 years we prepared for this day. We built our defenses in secret. We trained our soldiers in silence. We did this because we knew that someday someone would come for us, and we were right." She paused. "But I want to be clear about something. We did not win because we were stronger. We did not win because we were smarter. We won because we were ready. And we were ready because we chose to sacrifice, to wait, to believe that the future was worth protecting." She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of humans and aliens alike. "The Empire is gone now, but the lesson of this war is not about them. It is about us. It is about what we are willing to do to protect what we love. It is about the choices we make when we are afraid." Her voice grew softer. "I hope we never have to use weapons like the swarm again. I hope that one day we can take apart our defensive platforms and turn them into something beautiful. Schools, hospitals, parks where children can play." She smiled, and there were tears in her eyes. "But until that day comes, we will remember. We will remember the warning we sent to the galaxy 300 years ago. We will remember why we built our weapons and why we used them. And we will remember this truth, carved into the heart of every human being. We will protect our home. We will defend our children. And anyone who threatens them will learn what it means to face humanity." She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted in applause that seemed to go on forever. Outside the hall, floating in the cold darkness of space, the defensive platforms kept their silent watch. Their weapons were quiet now, their targeting systems sleeping, but they were always ready. Always waiting. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, beings of every species looked up at the stars and thought about what they had seen. Some felt fear, some felt admiration, some felt hope. But all of them understood one thing. Terran territory was sacred ground, and trespassing there meant death. The humans had proven it once. They would prove it again if they had to. But somehow, no one wanted to give them a reason. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And in the quiet depths of space, the warning continued to echo, passing from ship to ship, world to world, generation to generation. Enter and none return. The Empire had been warned. Now everyone knew that the warning was true.